Right, for the purposes of the recording, welcome to the Peer Space. We're about to enter our first phase of the evening. Tonight it's a talk night with Russell Parker. It's coming up in a few minutes. Before we do that, we're going to do our regular introduction slot. So it's round the room in a minute or two, since it's only 5 of us, but you know how I am. And it's who are you, how are you feeling, and what brings you here tonight. Russell, I think Russell could just basically do his and lead into his talk, or as he wishes, basically. Who would like to volunteer to go first?
I'll go first if other people won't.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, hi, I'm Jonathan MacDonald from potency.world. Please follow our LinkedIn page. I'm here because I support Niall in his efforts and hope that we can bounce ideas off each other to make these events more successful, basically.
Thanks very much. Very, very succinct. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go.
Oh, go on, you go, Phil.
Go, Phil.
So, I'm Phil Shepherd. I'm based in Ashted in Surrey. I'm associated with, or I'm part owner of a software company that's developed Thought Space, which is for brainstorming and for thinking about issues and problems. I too am here to support Niall in his quest for world dominance. Yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Phil. Sally?
Excellent. I'll go next. So I'm Sally Wood. I'm a consultant finance director, and I'm also finance director for the Peer Space. So that's part of the reason I'm here, to help Niall in his quest for world dominance and to make the world better, one event at a time. How am I? I'm feeling really positive this week. I've had a very productive week. I was just talking to Jonathan in the breakout room about how I am trying to make myself more efficient and less distracted, because sometimes when there are shiny things over there, I tend to get distracted by them. So I've been playing around with the way I work and finding myself much more productive and allowing myself half an hour here and there just to fap, which seems to be working really well. So yeah, feeling positive about work, feeling positive about life in general, plotting my gradual rehabilitation into society. So I've got some nice social things on the agenda over the next few weeks as well. So yeah, feeling good.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sally. Okay. Since that was so quick, I will go actually. I think often I do actually model it, don't I think?
I was going to say, you should do it as well, Niall.
Slightly different each time. I'm Niall, and I'm founder and host of the Peer Space. It's actually been running 3 years in June, but 2 of those years were as a dinner group in Sofia, Bulgaria, where I was living. And as we came into 2020, I was thinking about doing more and more dinners, and of course the pandemic came, and it all went online. So we've done an event pretty much every week since then, in various formats. And now the sort of featured event that we do is this talk nights a couple of times a month, and into alternate weeks we do something more like a connecting night. And it's the Peer Space is on an accelerator at the moment, so we're doing a lot of work around its articulation and possibly getting backing for it and that kind of thing. So hundreds of people have come along, and so it's been a fascinating journey. And I do some other things alongside that, and there's some exciting things happening for me at the moment in that respect. Watch this space. And I would just want to say, absolutely share your details in the chat. And before you leave, just save the chat. I don't share it around anymore. So you've got all the info that's been shared in the sort of everyone part of it. And at not even 18 minutes past, which is very efficient for us, I'm going to hand over to Russell Parker for his keynote slot as our speaker of the evening. And it's basically his talk time, which should open up into a kind of discussion, basically. So much of the rest of the session is his. Russell, over to you.
Okay, thanks. Yes, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me along. Thanks to Sally for putting me up for this, for this little chat. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Russell. And I operate in the space around change management in businesses. So I help organizations introduce change into their business. So kind of project management stuff, service management stuff. I do train. I do present and deliver training courses in best practice frameworks like Prince2, Prince2 Agile, ITIL, Agile project management, and all kinds of things like that. And I am accredited as a business to schedule and deliver my own Prince2 and ITIL courses. I do, however, still train for other organisations every now and then. So if people are short of a trainer, they'll put a shout out to me and I'll go and deliver. And I kind of deliver a lot in the area around that sort of change management arena. So yeah, that's kind of what I do, really. I've worked in IT for more years than I care to remember. We started in about 83 when I was about 4 years old, obviously, and kind of had a fair amount of experience in the kind of IT operations area from what's been a really interesting time in terms of change in that industry, because when I started, it was almost like we were a big calculator for the finance department. And basically that was it, you know. There wasn't a lot else we could do with the technology. But, you know, the 80s and 90s sure had this huge burst of technological growth, not just in business, but in our personal lives as well. You know, if I think back to the 80s and I think of my peers and the people that I knew, how many of those people had laptops? Actually, did laptops even exist? How many of those people had mobile phones? Again, you know, there was a period where they didn't exist. But these days, I mean, it's very rare to see anybody out on the street without some level of technology on their person. You know, yeah, there you go. If you leave your phone at home, it feels like you've left your left leg behind, you know. So it's been a period of immense change in that particular industry. And when I put this particular talk together that I'm going to go through in just a second, I did it a while back. It's a bit of a blog post that I did a while back, and I've been asked to present it on a couple of occasions as a bit of a speaker slot. It is around that area of change. It's around looking at what we do in our businesses and our organizations when we have to deal with changing scenarios. It's written, as you've probably gathered from the title, 7 Steps in How to Make Your Business Fail. It's written from a kind of reverse psychology perspective, because I think sometimes when we think about what to do, we can't see what to do. But if we suddenly think about what not to do, all kinds of ideas kind of spring out of the box. So I've written it from that kind of perspective, because when it comes to change, and again, there's statistics on this, and I know that 73.4% of people hate statistics being made up on the spot. So I'm going to quote from a valued source of IBM, who kind of say that 60% of change in organizations will fail unless you have a structured framework around your change management, in which case it reverses to an 80% success rate. And it is just to kind of get people to think about, actually, when we do change something in our business, you know, how can we look at it to put ourselves in that 80% success bracket rather than a 60% fail? Yeah. So if you're okay, we'll start with the 7 steps to how to make your business fail, shall we? Okay, I'll go through these one at a time. Step number one is never have a reason why. Okay, don't think about why you're doing something in your business. If you thought about something to do, it must be a brilliant idea. Because let's face it, we've all watched that program with Lord Sugar, and we've all looked at the best business brains in Britain and thought we could do much better than that. So we must be perfect. So every idea that we have has got to be actioned upon, regardless of whether it does our organisation any good or not. It certainly stops all these people screaming at us for not doing anything in the first place. I mean, why would we ever look at why something is desirable in our business? I mean, I certainly can't remember the last time somebody finished something, looked at it and went, why on earth did we do that? It's got to work. Yeah, we've put effort into this. We've put money into this. It's cost us a small fortune so far. So we've got to make it work. Don't start moaning about the fact that you've lost sales or your productivity's plummeted by 50%. You've paid for this, so you better use it. No one wants to hear about your problems anyway, whether they're actual ones or ones that might possibly happen in the future. Everything is doable. Nothing's impossible. And technology will answer any of your unanswered questions anyway. Strategies for losers, actions for heroes. Never think about why you want anything changed in your business, the return you get on your investment, or whether or not the change itself is actually achievable. Just crack on and do it. Step number 2, ignore the past. I mean, what can history teach you anyway? I used to hate history at school. Why would I want to learn about something that happened in the 1400s, you know, where, you know, the Church of England was formed and split away from the Catholic Church? I mean, how on earth is that going to affect us in the current day? It's history. It's gone. It's done. It's in the past. Forget it. Anyway, every idea you have is going to be unique. So it's a waste of time thinking about what happened on your previous projects so you can avoid the pitfalls on this one. And I'm not just talking about your own personal experience either. Don't waste time listening to anybody else in your business about what's happened previously that could possibly help you on this current idea. It's just a waste of time. It's gone. Can't change the past, so why bother looking at it? Oh, and don't research outside your organization either. I mean, what could possibly have happened with similar ideas in other organizations that could help you with this one? It's your competitors anyway, probably, so you probably don't want to talk to them. You don't want to know what they've done and what's gone wrong in their areas, because there's absolutely nothing that could learn from that, surely. And while you're doing this current initiative in your business, don't waste your time recording what's gone well or what's not gone quite so well. You know, it's not like you would want to continue doing good things or correcting errors you've made in the past anyway, isn't it? Oh, don't forget, from point number 1, you're perfect. So nothing's ever going to go wrong, yeah? So we're all perfect all the time. Don't worry about it. Step number 3, keep the team in the dark. People love surprises. I just look at the joy on people's faces when you give them a present they weren't expecting. Yeah, their eyes light up. They get a smile when they say, "Oh, really? You shouldn't have." So why tell people about anything? Yeah, it's much better to keep them in the dark about stuff and surprise them at the last minute. Project change teams and business teams should be handled in the same way. When it keeps up morale and enthusiasm. Yeah, don't tell anybody what you're expecting them to contribute to your organization or your initiative. Everybody naturally should know this anyway. Somebody will eventually do something with it, even if nobody really knows what they're doing with stuff anyway. If you leave a task hanging around long enough, it's bound to sort itself out. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not as if nobody ends up doing it. Much of the same attitude goes towards communication as well, particularly with any other stakeholders you've got. around your business environment. Yeah, don't bother telling anybody anything. It's all top secret until it all gets released. Okay, so don't bother identifying anybody who might be interested in your business or interested in maybe buying products or services. It's much better not to tell anybody anything. Yeah, never market anything. It's so much better to hit people with stuff as a big surprise at the end. Yeah, it saves so much time, listening to them as well, you know, because, you know, we're perfect. So we're just going to carry on regardless, aren't we? Step number 4, once started, always finish. No initiative should ever be reviewed. Okay, you took this decision maybe 3 years ago or so in the past, and it was your decision, so bound to be perfect. So never ever question it. Once you've decided to start something, crack on and never ever review it. Okay, why would you? Yeah, nothing ever changes in your business or even outside of your business that could affect the way that you operate and the way that you deliver what you do. So why question it? You know, why have key decision points in the life cycle of this initiative so you can review it and decide whether or not you should either carry on with it or stop what you're doing at that particular moment, you know, just in case we've wasted time and money and effort. We don't really worry about that. And anyway, when you have these decision points, it only adds to the administration paperwork because it creates smaller, more accurate plans, so you know what's happening between these decision points. Useless stuff. Yeah, because you're going to have to update information on this anyway to show the viability of what you're doing, the desirability of what you're doing, whether or not you can still achieve it. Look, you took this decision, like I say, over 3 years ago, and nothing's going to change around you that's going to possibly affect what you're doing. So stop wasting time with all this reviewing. Just crack on. Yeah, get it done. Plus the fact that the project plan took ages to put together, and it's a work of art, really. You know, you did this 3 years ago with so many activities, individually detailing what you were doing every hour of every day for the next 3 years, and it took you ages to do, and it's beautiful. Yeah, you've probably printed it on some massive bit of paper that's up on the wall, so you better not change it. Yeah, so if you change something on it, if you move something on it, it's going to affect the whole thing, so leave it alone. Just do things, yeah, as you first planned them, and never ever review it. Yeah, so that's number 4. Step number 5. Step number 5: micromanage wherever possible. Nobody likes being left on their own to work. Everybody loves having someone watching over their shoulder the whole time, directing their each and every move, every key press, every pen stroke. Oh, they love it. Yeah. Besides which, don't forget, you're keeping everybody in the dark anyway, so they're not going to really know what they're supposed to be doing. So you need to be there to tell them every minute of every day what's going on. So there's no point leaving them on their own. Yeah. And they don't want to be responsible for their own decisions anyway. Yeah. They're quite fearful that they're going to make the wrong one. So it's much better to have them running backwards and forwards to you to ask for the decision of every moment of every day. Well, let's face it, that's what you're managing them for, isn't it? That's what management is all about, is telling people what to do. It's best if you could do this all the time. Yeah, we can drop whatever we're doing in management on the operational side of the business to cope with all of the requests coming in from all these change initiatives. So it's okay. But anyway, because the business operation has been in place for decades. Like, nothing ever goes wrong in the business. So, you know, always micromanage whenever you can. Step 6. Planning is for wimps. Action is for heroes. Don't just sit there planning, get on with it. And don't take my word for this. The late Sir John Harvey Jones was once quoted as saying that planning is an unnatural process. It's much more fun to do something. And the nice thing about not planning is that failure comes as a complete surprise without being preceded by a period of worry and depression. So forget the planning thing. It's all action, 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 action. Everybody knows that action creates work, creates output, and never mind what that looks like. Yeah, just do it. Just create it. Let's not think about what it can do or whether it's going to or whether we can benefit from its use. Just do something. Keep your hands busy. Idle hands makes devil's work and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just make sure you keep moving targets, all that kind of stuff. Seriously, why would you want to think about what the finished article is anyway? Just go ahead and build it. You're perfect. Don't forget. You thought of this. It's got to be great. So make sure, you don't need to kind of think about, things like components of something or the features of a product or a service or even, don't get me started on quality. ISO standards and the bureaucracy they bring to my business. Oh, my word. Why on earth would I ever think about going down that road? That would identify what skills I need in my business to be able to deliver quality products, or whether or not I've got those skills to begin with. Complete waste of time, because it's perfect, isn't it? We all know what we're doing. We're all taking brilliant decisions. So no need for all this quality nonsense. Just build it. Action. Yeah. Actions for heroes, don't forget. Which brings us to step number 7. Keep doing it this way. Never, ever look at each individual part of your business and each initiative in your business and consider how to adapt your working methods to it. Okay, it's taken ages. I was asked to put a business case together many, many years ago, and it's taken me years to perfect this template for business cases. It's about 200 pages long, because I needed it that long because I was doing some large projects. So I've taken all that time and effort in putting this template together. So I'm going to use it regardless of what I'm looking at, whether I'm building a shopping center, an IT system, or a garden shed. I'm still going to use the 200-page business case, because this really does help. It helps keep you busy, yeah? Because if you apply everything to its fullest extent, you create a lot of administration. And you create jobs this way, because you have to pay for people to do all this nonsense work for you. You have to, fill time with this administrative work. So only by sticking rigidly to ideas, frameworks, and templates, and not thinking about how we apply them in each individual situation, are we going to help all this job creation. Certainly more useful than putting people, getting people to move paperwork around is a lot better than getting them to actually do something productive anyway. So, but there we go, everybody. Those are your 7 steps of how to make your business fail. Easy to apply and very effective. Can be very fast at actually crashing your business. Yeah, obviously. So hopefully that's sparked a few ideas. I just
Sure, we could try some of those out for the peer space now, can't we?
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to ask you before we open it up. Did you want to? Are you going to tell us anything more about the Slovenian Parliament, or is that going to remain?
The Slovenian Parliament. Yeah, I can do. That was. Yeah, I was trying to think of a way of best telling this story actually early on. I first went out to Slovenia in 2007, I think it was. Slovenia at the time was still a relatively young country because of the breakup of Yugoslavia. Was that in the 90s sometime? So as a relatively new country state, it wanted the really great stuff to help it innovate and to help it become a much or grow its economy. So they used to have this department in their government that was the Department of Technical Improvement or something, or worded something like that. there was a guy that used to work in this department. He actually left the government and he went to work for this training company. And he got in touch with us in the UK and he asked us to come over and do a Prince 2 course. And I got nominated as the trainer. So I went out to Slovenia. And actually, this is like a little add-on to the claim to fame, because there hadn't been any Prince 2 training in Slovenia up to this point. So I was the first trainer to deliver Prince 2 in Slovenia. And I think about 3 or 4 of the people on the course were from this department of technical improvement, including the director. And we were sat over lunch on one of the days, and this guy, he was a really nice guy. We used to talk all the time in the break times. He asked me how I first came to Prince 2, how I got introduced to it and how I started using it. And I related the story to him. I've used Prince 2 since the early 90s when I used to work at Coca-Cola, but not in an official capacity. When I went to work for the National Health Service as an IT project manager, they sent me on a Prince 2 course, but they didn't pay for me to take the exam, but they wanted me to be aware of the framework so that I could use it in the NHS. Yeah, so, yeah, okay, that's fine. So when I left the NHS and I went to work for a company called AGFA, and AGFA have a healthcare division that deliver digital radiology equipment into the health service. So I actually moved from the NHS to AGFA to deliver this radiology kit into the NHS across the country. When I did that movement, the agreement between AGFA and the NHS was that any project manager working in AGFA had to be Prince 2 practitioner qualified, to work on that connection, with on that supply. So I had to do another Prince 2 course and sit the exam and pass the exam so I could stay on being employed. And I was kind of telling this guy this, just a conversation over lunch, and thought nothing of it. Just a lunchtime conversation. Finished the course, flew home. And it must have been about 3 or 4 months later, I went back out to Slovenia to do another course. And all was fine. The guy that booked us out there, he always looks after me really well. He takes me out for dinner in the evenings, we have a few beers and stuff like that. We sat having dinner one night, and he said to me, do you remember that first time you came out? Because I'd been out there a few times anyway. He said, do you remember doing that course the first time you came out? Yeah. What did you say to that guy on that course, that director of that department? I said, well, nothing. Nothing was really springing into mind. Just did a Prince 2 course. He said, you've done something, he said, because he said, we've had questions raised in the Slovenian parliament. What? And apparently what this guy had done is he'd immediately gone back to his office the following week and made it policy of his department that if anybody wanted to apply for any government funding, which included any funding coming from the European Union, which was quite important to Slovenia at that particular moment in its development, they had to be Prince 2 qualified to be able to make the grant application, to be able to get their investment. Slovenian companies, when they heard of this policy change, went and immediately got in touch with their MPs. And questions were raised in the Slovenian parliament over this policy change of everybody having to be Prince 2 qualified to be able to apply for grant money. So there you go.
I love it. I asked Russell for a claim to fame, and this sort of came up. So it's quite funny to hear the full story. Love it. So guys, we've got sort of about 15 minutes to open it up now. I've got some thoughts, but open up to the floor first for any questions or comments about that. And I'm gonna launch a poll, which is very simply of the 7 easy steps to guarantee failure in business. Which 3 would you pick as your big ones? I've been thinking about it. So it's a very simple poll. Otherwise, who would like to ask a question or who has a comment? If everyone could have a chance, that would be great. Any volunteers?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Here's the poll.
I've been talking for 15 minutes. So.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. You need a rest now, don't you? Well, I'll just do my poll. Ooh.
If someone could, if someone wants to ask or comment, I mean, I can.
Well, my problem here is that I just agree with everything that you said.
Yeah, why change anything? What you said was perfect.
I can't fill anything in on this poll.
One thing I could say to kick it off is it's interesting because the last company I worked for in a salaried role, I'll be very careful what I say here on recording, but I'm going to say they were a young team and they were very focused on some very modern management approaches. And I was thinking that some of them are definitely contradicting these. And what occurred to me was that young companies and very modern tech companies, you could say, that are very small, can get away with a lot of freedoms that I think larger companies, let's say the NHS, enormous companies, really, really can't get away with. So just as a point of debate, some of the things you talked about structure and about, there are some debatable points there for sure, aren't there? Because, but if you're talking about, as I've thought about FTSE 250 companies, corporates, big public institutions, you've got to have these things in place. Whereas there's definite argument and many other sort of, models for how modern small companies operate in the early days, let's say. So as partly a comment and partly a question, I suppose, for Russell, but I don't know what anyone else thinks.
I think actually, if you're talking about newer companies that are perhaps smaller, things tend to evolve and change in a much more natural way, and you've got those much more fluid channels of communication. I think it can be when you get a big established organisation, and it is that classic thing of we've always done it this way, it works. And it sounds like such a cliche, but you hear it so many times, don't you? Oh, I don't need a review of anything. I'm really happy with what I've got. I mean, anybody who works in any sector will have heard those phrases. And I think it's really true. And I think you're right, Niall. There's a big difference between a corporate and a smaller company, that you probably have to make a much more conscious effort with a corporate to do something. And I think there's probably an element of one person working on their own in isolation can easily get into that mindset as well of, I'm on this track, I've put lots of money into it, this is my business model, I'm going to work this way and I'm sticking with it and I'm going to see this through, whether it's right or not.
I'll just quickly say, you've got the poll result, and I can't vote, but I would have said they keep the team in the dark, they micromanage, and I would have put they keep doing it this way, but because I just think the whole continuous learning thing is so key. But so interesting to see what the popular ones were. And what was doing it this way? Sorry, what was the other one? Someone had another thing.
I put all of them, really.
Okay.
Because
we should do, because it's your talk.
I don't think there's an important 3. I think if you end up not or doing one of those steps, any one of them, I think you're going to give yourself a bit of issue. Just on the point that Sally was making there about single people businesses and doing what we do and just carrying on. I did remember actually there was somebody went on to Dragon's Den a while back with some kind of product or idea, and he was trying to get, I think, something like about £200,000 of investment from the Dragons to expand it. The Dragons quizzed him on what the product was, what it did. I can't remember exactly what the details were, but it was obviously not going to work. It was a product that was never ever going to return the numbers that this guy was forecasting it would do. And he just dropped into the conversation that he'd already invested £100,000 of his own money in this product. And Peter Jones just said, stop. Just don't do any more. Whatever you do, walk out of this building and never, ever, ever put another pound into this.
I probably watch Dragon's Den clip most days, and that does happen a fair amount, doesn't it? This is not a business. Like,
But it's really, when you mentioned about the small business, it's important for small business to do this as well, not in the scale that the NHS would do it. And that's when the importance of having somebody else to bounce an idea off is really, really key. I always advocate on the Prince 2 courses that there should be 2 people involved in a project. And even when you're in a small business, you might only be the person in your business. It's so important to have somebody else to go to say, I've had this idea. What do you think?
Yeah.
I'm
gonna say I've worked in corporates and I've worked in creative agencies. It's kind of very extreme difference. So with the plannings for Women's Action, in that space, you kind of like good creative agencies, big ones, will have like good structures in place. But of course, in the creativity side of things, there is a lot of experimentation, a lot of just trying things, a lot of like in marketing, it's like. I've got frustrated because I've worked a lot more in recent years in companies with less than 100 people, and you kind of miss some of those more corporate structures that are so and so often that's what makes those big corporates successful in a sense, that they are structured. But
and actually there's a lot of thinking coming into that corporate space about experimentation with work and the ability to do new things and try new things to see how it happens. And if you've heard of the kind of agile mindset of working in management these days, very or shorter iterative development cycles and feedback on products and services. A lot of organizations are trying this now where they have an objective overall, but they're never sure how they're going to get to the objective yet until they've tried the bit of work at the beginning. They've done they've done some work for a few weeks and then they look at it and go, okay, is this right? And I did it on a project in Coca-Cola for the first time back in the 90s, and we had a quote from one of the managers when we actually finished the project, from the guy who was actually sponsoring the whole project, and he said, well, you didn't deliver what we asked for, but you delivered what we needed.
I like that.
And it was kind of like, okay, they came to us with an idea at the beginning of what they wanted, and using this very kind of iterative development cycle, we were able to feed back kind of prototypes of the system along the way, and we got their ideas in about whether or not we were moving in the right direction. We were able to give them something that perhaps wasn't what they asked for, but actually was what they actually needed.
John, Phil, do you want to come in with something? Some thoughts, comments?
I've just copied a connection into the chat for Russell. So Niall and I both worked in the same corporate brand for a period of time, Yellow Pages, and I was actually in their change management department as they went from paper to computers. So you're talking about laptops. They were the first company to introduce laptops to its sales force in 94, I think. So so that contact Carl, he's doing ISO 27001 as an automated process for what would cost normally several tens of thousands for experts to come in and do. So you may find you've got some overlap.
Okay, cool.
What else? What sort of people are you looking for otherwise?
Well, I just dropped into the chat my normal kind of networking tribe.
Yeah, but
I kind of tend to look for either IT professionals or IT departments that are looking at, from the individual perspective, looking at adding qualifications and credibility to their CVs.
Where else? Where do you physically? Where you? Not that it matters so much, but where are you physically?
I'm in Daventry in Northamptonshire. So
Very nice. Right, I'm going to give you another contact.
it's smack in the middle of the country. And
Yeah, you're pretty much about as central as it gets, aren't you? Even more than me.
yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm 40 minutes from Birmingham Airport. So
It's not a claim to fame that I'd actually publicise myself. Right,
well, that's fair. Yeah.
there's a guy in the chat called Matthew Southgate. So he runs a IT company. What are they called? You know, when they do fully installed and service, blah 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 blah. So he's that kind of guy and would naturally be involved in change. He's also dyslexic like me, so he's very good at spatial and creative thinking. I think you
Okay.
get on.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Lovely. Thank you.
Any other insights into the session tonight? Questions?
Yeah, I'll just say my background really is in building businesses from scratch, so I'm very much in the small business sector. And all these things apply to people starting out, possibly even more so, because you've got to, if you're starting a business on your own, it's very difficult, but you've got to cover all these different departments and all these different things that the corporates do. You've got to be the sort of one-man band, but you've got to be able to bang the drum and hit the cymbals and whatever, all those things, and it's tough. And so I agree with all of these things from a point of view of they've all got to be covered.
I worked in a young business that was sort of they wanted to do something in a very different way, but one of the things we felt was that they weren't a very mature business, so they actually needed to be more mature to consider doing, so to take on board some of the more, let's say, industry best practice generally before, because they were all growing very fast, but they didn't have the structures in place. That's how it kind of felt at that time. But yeah,
I think one of the problems for small businesses, that people starting out in business for themselves for the first time, is their naivety. And it's not just their naivety, it's the lack of knowledge that they're being naive. Yeah. So they're in a kind of a weird loop that stops them covering all these things that we've been talking about. Yeah.
I think there's a how hard can it be mentality. So somebody has done a particular job as an employee where there's all this structure around them and they think, well, I could do that in a company. I could do this for myself and earn loads more money. How hard can it? I'm something like Russell now, aren't I? How hard can it be? And actually it can be really hard because you have got to be everything, as Phil says, you have got to have every aspect. And I think that's why having, even if you're owning your business, having some kind of mechanism, some kind of critical friend there, and somebody who's honest with you, who will say, please don't, that's a really bad idea, or have you thought about it doing another way? And if you pick your best mate to do it, that's probably the worst, or your friend or your mum or whoever, that's probably the worst person in the world that you can pick, because they will not be honest with you.
Definitely.
Because they don't want to hurt your feelings, and you need somebody who will do it in a nice way. It is.
Can I just quickly say that the reason I picked my three, I remember in a big corporate environment on the employee surveys, it was always communication that was the big one that was scored. It was the hardest one, right? To get right. And so that keeping the team in the dark thing, that was the one that really struck it for that. Micromanaging for me is that classic, like, the old way, going over the top, not empowering, the decision making, like everyone go over the top, whatever's that was the reason that one stood out. And then just the general concepts of like all the innovation type stuff I've been involved with, it's all about continuous improvement, constant, reiterating things. So that idea of just like always doing it the same way is just such nonsense in it. So that was the right reason. I find it interesting to try and pick out some of the ones that resonated more. But is there a final question or a final comment? Because I want to wrap up in about the next 2 or 3 minutes, and just anything else anyone wants to add. And if not, I'm going to share again the blurb. Obviously, thank you for coming along. Thank you very much to Russell for being part of this. Really appreciate it. We didn't actually applaud him, but nice to have you along. Come again if you like. All the blurb there about getting more involved with us. The next event is next Wednesday at 6. there'll be, so I've got speakers lined up, but I'm interested to meet more speakers. So if you do know anyone, do let me know, and reach out to me if anyone else that wants to get more deeply involved in working with us, partnering with us, or if they have use cases for us. John, do you have a joke tonight?
I was thinking about that earlier. I haven't that I can fit in 3 minutes. Well, I have, but
Can you do it in 1 minute? Because I've got to get to another call actually.
no.
Do the one
Oh,
about
tell
the.
me.
I remember a really good one you told us about the beam of light in the hotel reception with the luggage.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it decent? Should I stop the recording?
No.
Oh, it's
I mean,
decent. It's decent.
yeah, of
Okay.
course it's decent. Even if it wasn't, you already called it. Okay, so a particle of light is called a photon, if you don't know scientific terms. So photon goes into a hotel on the south coast of England. He goes up to the room, up to the concierge. He says, "Excuse me, I'd like a room for a week with a sea view." The concierge says, "Would you like some help with your luggage, sir?" And he goes, "No, thanks. I'm traveling light." Come on.
It was funny again. It's funny again this time.
Yeah, well,
I'm working on the day.
I'm working on my Zoom delivery. Basically, you have to look right into the camera. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up there. If you could save the chat, if you want to save the chat, just save it, and we'll be back an hour
Russell,
later.
you've got those links, have you, Russell? Cool.
Yep.
All right.
I've got the windows open ready, so when we shut down, I'm gonna
Fantastic.
dive in and do those.
All right.
Thank you very much for all of that.
No worries.
Very much.
See you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Russell.
Brilliant.
Thank you for stepping in.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Very
Noel.
entertaining.
Guys, see you soon.